All right, you guys, what is going on? I hope you are all staying well and staying safe and healthy. This is a very magical time of year. You know, for me, at least once November hits, there's just a certain quality in the air, and a lot of people would agree with me in that regard. But pretty much every year, ladies and gentlemen, on my channel, I put a large emphasis on magic in my videos from, the beginning of November till pretty much the new year. So it's not in any way, shape, or form it's not, if I can speak today, in any way, shape, or form going to be the only subject that I talk about in my videos from now until then, but I'm going to be putting an emphasis on the subject. Magic is a very important thing. I think that it is one of the most important tools for anyone who is truly serious about becoming conscious in this world. Magic in 2020, with what's going on in the world, can really help you get a better footing and a stronger foundation in this crazy world. That's all I'm going to say. I've explained this in a handful of my other videos, so I don't want to go off into left field. I want to talk about in this video the magical tools. But I will just summarize things by saying that magic is something that you should greatly consider looking into if you have already not done so. There's a lot of misinformation about magic and what it is. There's a lot of superstition about it and a lot of bullshit out there. And on this channel, I've done my best to clarify what magic actually is from what it isn't. It's simply, ladies and gentlemen, a spiritual technology pertaining to the mind and its own growth. So please go watch my old videos on magic, my newer ones, and hopefully this one, to learn more. This is simply a technology that we can use, ladies and gentlemen, to purge our mind of the bullshit that we've accumulated from pretty much day one when we came out of mama's womb and got exposed to the Matrix. Magic is a system of reprogramming our mind. It helps us locate the errors in our own thinking so that we can purge them out of ourselves and rebuild ourselves based on our own more mature outlook. I've said this in a handful of videos. You are the sum total of your programming from the day you came out of the womb until now. And a lot of the programs that you're still holding on to as an adult were pumped into you based on your interaction with the world from, again, when you were young. From when you were young up till now, there was a lot of stuff that went on in your life, and it developed based on how you reacted to life, ladies and gentlemen, you developed certain beliefs about the world, and those beliefs are literally controlling your life behind the scenes of your conscious mind. So ladies and gentlemen, today, I'm going to be posting 2 videos about magic. This one and a hour and 10-minute long video where I go into great detail about how magic can actually help us deprogram. So please watch that video to learn more. In this video, again, we're going to talk about the magical tools. In no way, shape, or form am I going to be able to get everything that I want to say out in this video, because I could rant for 8 hours on the magical tools or more. I want to try to keep this succinct. First and foremost, if you are new to this, please watch my older videos, but especially the video that I posted with this one. It's got a picture of a Rosicrucian cross on it and a chalice. I'll put a link in the description box below for easy finding. If you're new to all of this stuff, you need a basic primer, and that video is a basic primer. So, with that aside, the magical tools are tools that we use while practicing magic, and these tools help our mind focus down specific channels. We are very mundane creatures. We are very physically oriented creatures, and this has a lot to do with our programming. The magical tools, there's no power in the tool itself, ladies and gentlemen. The power of the tool is how it speaks to the subconscious. So I guess, yes, there actually is some power in the magical weapon or tool, whatever you want to call them. But it's not power like most people think it would be. For instance, when you think of a magical wand in a fantasy book or Lord of the Rings, the power is actually contained more often than not in the actual wand. It's blessed. It gives the individual who uses or wields it supernatural powers because it is filled with them. In real magic, the tool's power is not contained within its, physical parts. For instance, the wood handle or the blade of the sword that you use. It's not actually contained. There's no magical power per se in that metal alloy, etc. The magic comes from the ability of the sword as a symbol to speak to the subconscious mind. The language of the subconscious is largely symbolism, and that's why we use symbols like the sword or the chalice in magic. It speaks directly to the subconscious. It speaks to the more ancient parts of the brain. And magic, ladies and gentlemen, within magic, we are trying to speak to the subconscious, because the subconscious, if you've watched my older videos on magic, you know that that's basically the powerhouse, the power source of magic. Magic works through the subconscious, not just the subconscious, but it is a largely subconscious communication system. But magic also speaks to the various other parts of the mind, including the conscious mind. So, when you pick up and use the chalice, for instance, which represents the western quarter and water, and there's a handful of other correspondences that the chalice is connected to. We're not going to get into all these little itty-bitty pieces in this video. I'm going to try to keep this under 15 minutes. But when you pick up and use the chalice in a ritual, it's speaking to your subconscious, and it's causing your subconscious to project energy in a specific manner. That is why we use the tools. So again, if you've never watched any of my videos, if you don't know what the magical tools are, then you have to go back and watch my older videos. I explain all of it. This video is not going to be about it's not going to be me explaining what each tool is and why we use them. I just want to talk about how, in this video, I really want to just say how to make them. And I want to talk about whether or not you even need them. So I have older videos where I talk about the significance, the symbolic significance of each of the tools. But that's how the tools work, ladies and gentlemen. They help you focus your mind while in a ritual. And we need things that can help us focus, because we are very largely unfocused creatures. You see, magic is an art and science of mental mastery. It teaches you, if you practice it properly, how to have more control over your mind. That is the eventual end goal of magic, to have complete control over your mind. And most of us do not have that. And if you actually start to do the exercises that I talk about frequently, such as but not limited to the motionlessness exercise, the thoughtlessness exercises, you will come to the same conclusion that we are very unfocused creatures, and our minds currently, due to our programming, are getting the best of us. So when the average person sits down and tries to empty their mind for 15 minutes with the thoughtlessness exercise, more often than not, they get highly agitated. They might start sweating profusely. They more often than not will get confronted with a handful of different thoughts and emotions. We do the thoughtlessness exercise to show ourselves how our minds have been programmed against us. Our minds are constantly moving. There's an internal dialogue that never shuts the hell up. So through the thoughtlessness exercise, you come into contact, or you can finally witness that part of your mind that never shuts off. We don't come into contact with that part of our mind during the day, because we're dominated by the conscious mind. We have all these tasks to do, and it keeps us operating on what I like to call the front of the mind. While in magic, you pull that curtain back and you start to step into the parts of the mind that are shut off to your conscious mind during the day while you're doing all your tasks. I hope that makes sense. We are very largely unfocused creatures. So in magic, we use these tools because they help us focus. And because of their ability to help us focus, they have massive significance. So, how do you, and of course my neighbor's got to start doing yard work when I make this video. How do you, ladies and gentlemen, find the magical tools? There's the sword or the dagger, there's the chalice, ladies and gentlemen, there's the pentacle, and there's the wand. Now, what I'm going to say is something that a lot of people don't want to hear, because a lot of people want to go out and find these magical items and start making these, and I can understand it. It's a fun thing to do. First and foremost, you go into your inner temple and you find the magical weapons, or what I like to call them tools. A lot of people call them magical weapons, but you find your magical tools in your inner temple. And to do that, you simply follow the inner temple exercise that is laid out in Philip Cooper's book, The Magician, or any of his other books. I have a free copy that you can download of The Magician here on the Patreon page. It's a very rare book. They cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I have a free copy of it in PDF form here on the Patreon page. So read that book, start doing the inner temple exercise, and start to get to know the elements within your inner temple. That's truly where the power lies, ladies and gentlemen, in your inner temple. So as you progress, though, as you start to work with the elements in your inner temple, what will end up happening most likely is that if you're really sincere about practicing magic, by working with the elements in your inner temple, your subconscious will open up certain avenues in your life and lead you to specific tools and crafty items that you can use to make your own physical tools that we can use in the physical plane. You might be walking down the road one day and find a perfect branch that speaks to you. Just this perfect piece of wood that you can take home, and you could whittle it. This is what I did. I found this beautiful piece of wood, and I whittled it down and sanded it, and I put lacquer on it, and I put a piece of quartz on the end. You've probably seen that wand in some of my old videos. I found this beautiful stick and made a wand. The wand is associated with fire. In some systems, the sword is actually associated with fire, and the wand is associated with the east. And by all means, you do not have to use the 4 traditional tools that are associated with the elements. You can create your own goddamn magical system and make your own tools based on your own unique interests, but that's besides the point. And in my opinion, it's important that you follow a system for a while that uses some of the more traditional tools. And you want to follow a system and get used to practicing magic before you take what you've learned and make your own magical system, because the best magic, ladies and gentlemen, for you is a system that you create. But it's kind of like someone who is getting into cycling for the first time. You don't just start off and build your own bike. You can't go from point A to point B like that. You've got to start riding bikes. You got to learn to ride the bike first, right? And then maybe learn how to change the tires or the tubes when the tire goes bad. Then you learn how to change the brakes. You slowly, over time, pick up pieces of information as you go along, and you learn how to master something. Once you master, ladies and gentlemen, or once you get very proficient at practicing magic, and I've always recommended that you practice the magic as laid out in Philip Cooper's The Magician. Once you get used to that, once you start being able to practice the pentagram rituals, when you memorize all the words, then you can slowly, over time, start to make your own system with your own unique symbols, etc. In fact, as you progress and as you learn to practice real magic, eventually it'll get to the point where you see how, as you're practicing other people's systems, you start to see, wow, this would be better if I did this, or this should be changed, or maybe I just want to make something unique unto itself. Once you get proficient at other people's systems, you start to see how there's certain flaws in those systems, because those systems are theirs. And I'm not saying that we can't use other people's systems, but as you progress, your soul will start to desire the formulation of its own system. I hope that makes sense. So I've taken Philip's system and practiced it long enough, and it got to the point where I have just created my own system with his system kind of as a core nucleus, or not a nucleus, or a scaffolding. So we'll talk more about that in the near future. But again, ladies and gentlemen, if you work with the elemental tools in your inner temple, and you walk around your inner temple and maybe walk up to the eastern elemental gateway and grab the sword and look at it, once you make contact subconsciously in your inner temple with the elements, what will most likely end up happening is certain things, again, will happen in your life that will lead you to finding the items that you need to make your own tools. So for me, a small dagger, it's a small sword. It's actually kind of a large dagger, but it's a small sword, presented itself to me after working, excuse me, I've got the hiccups. After I worked with the air element for long enough, a dagger showed up, and I totally customized it and painted it and did a lot of work with it and blessed it and consecrated it. So I hope that makes sense. The chalice is the easiest one to find because you can go to pretty much anywhere. You can go to thrift stores and find beautiful old metal cups. I don't recommend just going out and buying anything though, just because you can. In order for these tools to have significance, they need to have special meaning. And in order for them to have special meaning, you want in a way for them to present themselves to you. And the way you get that to happen is by working with the elements in your inner temple. By working with each of the 4 elements in your inner temple, you create anchor points subconsciously, so to speak, that bleed into your physical life and guide you to finding the specific materials needed to make your own items. So for instance, you might one day, instead of just going somewhere and buying a chalice, if you work with the element of water in your inner temple, you might one day just be walking down the street and make a sudden right-hand turn on a road you've never been on while you're going on a walk, and there might be a garage sale there, and in the distance you see a metal shining cup, and you walk up to it and it just feels like, okay, that's it, that's my chalice. You want to try, ladies and gentlemen, to let the elemental you want the elemental tools to find you in a way. It creates a much stronger psychic link when it happens that way. Instead of you just going online and ordering something. I hope that makes sense. And it will happen if you work with the tools in your inner temple. And working with your tools in the inner temple is where the real power is going to come from, these elemental tools, ladies and gentlemen. If you just go out and buy these elemental tools and never do the inner work, the physical tools, when you use them, really aren't going to have that much of a magnitude. The physical tools have a much stronger effect on the mind when you work with them in your inner temple. So if you work with the inner temple regularly, like I do, and if you work with the tools in the inner temple regularly, when you go and grab the physical tool in the physical realm, it creates a strong psychic link to your subconscious, because when you go and grab that tool, your subconscious remembers all of the work you did with the tool in your inner temple. I hope that makes sense. I really want you to try. I really hope that does make sense, because it's one of the most crucial things to remember. In order for these tools, the physical tools, to have a strong effect on the subconscious, you have to work with them in your inner temple. That way, every time you pick up, for instance, the wand, your subconscious goes, okay, I have multiple hours under my belt of me working with the element of fire in my inner temple, and it creates this strong link. It creates almost like a traction or a friction of sorts. Whereas if some random Joe Blow just, I'm going to practice magic, I'm just going to buy my tools online, and you never do the inner work, you're never going to progress anywhere with the magic, folks. So, just a brief little rant that pretty much summarizes it. I don't feel like I really need to say much more than that. Another thing that you're going to want, and one of the most valuable tools, ladies and gentlemen, is a journal. And I recommend, I've written journals of my progress while I'm practicing magic. It's important to have a record, but I don't like writing stuff down in a journal, because it just, for some reason, my hand just can't keep up with the speed of my mind, and I can get a lot more done if I just record myself on a phone and then load what I recorded on like a hard drive, like you're seeing on the screen right now, an external hard drive. I have a journal on my computer that I store everything to, but I back it up onto a hard drive. That way, if anything happens, I have a record of all of my work. You want to keep a record of your magical progress so that you can go back and look, ladies and gentlemen, at what you've done. There's also a very special thing that happens when you take time to make videos and log them into your journal. You can also do like voice memos and save voice memos, but I recommend doing videos for your eyes only. When you sit down at the end of the week and fill your journal in on Sunday or Saturday, whenever you do it, it creates an imprint on your subconscious as you remember everything that you've done. Keeping a journal will help you, shook the camera, keeping a journal will help you progress much quicker. So I have multiple hours of journal entries on this hard drive right here. I'd like to do things to the best of my ability. But I'm going to wrap this one up, you guys. I've got a package that just arrived, and I don't want the dogs to go crazy. So I love you. I hope this video was informative, and until next time, peace be with you.